Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is SockBot, and today I want to talk a little bit about backgrounds and skyboxes, and essentially the finishing touches of games within Dreams and in general. I also want to talk a little bit about how maybe you could do these finishing touches first, but I suppose that's a bit of a specific scenario, so we'll talk about that later in the video. But if you enjoy this sort of discussion video about something that is, well, somewhat of an interesting topic and very much can help people when, you don't really have an end in sight and well, leads to a lot of work in progresses that never get finished. Hopefully you can help some of those people, but if you do enjoy this sort of video, feel free to leave a like down below and feel free to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more, but no pressure as always. Anyways, let's get right into the video. So I want to focus on a few things today, namely what a skybox is, what it's not, and some good/great examples of what I think a good skybox does. To start off, a good skybox displays whatever sort of sky your world has, obviously, but only if it's outside. It also displays a vague depiction of the distant elements and environment, e.g. distant buildings, landscapes, terrain, etc. If you go into the Valve forums, they actually have a fantastic amount of information about skyboxes and various other parts of game design on a more amateur level, a la us in Dreams, because a lot of people there are having no experience with traditional game design, trying to create mods and different maps for games. It's a great resource. I highly recommend looking around for it. Obviously, not all of it applies to Dreams, but a decent amount of it does, and of course, that's where I found a lot of my definitions for some of my videos that I tend to expand on for 10 minutes, but highly recommend. Traditionally, a skybox was some sort of cube or sphere that surrounded the current area that was textured to look like these distant elements I mentioned before, but in Dreams, there is a little bit more of a gray area. Primarily, you have the skybox settings in Dreams that allow you to tweak the texture, the colors, and the lighting of your skybox, but you also have the option to add anything else to your skybox by literally just making it big and placing it far in the distance. To make these two work more seamlessly together, I do recommend only using paintings for additional skybox elements because they tend to blend with the background and the skybox that Dreams provides a lot better. But honestly, you could create 3D elements to add to your skybox and turn the sculpture detail way down using that tool, but if you're going to do this for one element, you sort of have to fill the entire skybox with them or it's going to look a little bit disjointed. That's also a lot of work for something that World of Warcraft doesn't even do, and that's one of my top examples of good skyboxes later on, so as always, pick your battles here. Truly, 3D sculptures are often better used as elements in the foreground of your scene, which is where we get into what a skybox is not. A skybox can make your world feel much bigger. It can enhance your environmental storytelling and even do some on its own, but it cannot do all of this alone. A gorgeous skybox with meticulous elements needs a foreground to match, or the world is going to feel even more flat. In other words, the player will not feel a sense of vastness in a game without the scene being vast in its own right. I talked a lot about this in one of my more recent videos on 3D platformers because Super Mario 64 does a great job of this. It uses a super simple skybox of just a normal sky with some clouds, but every level has some seemingly insurmountable element that always dominates the horizon. Seriously, Bomb-On Battlefield has a mountain with a boss fight at the top, Whomp's Fortress has Whomp's Fortress, Jolly Roger Bay has the pirate ship, Cool Mountain starts you on top of a mountain. I could literally list all of the rest of the worlds, but you get the point here. These sorts of seemingly insurmountable but still surmountable elements are what make scenes feel vast. They serve as a great background, made even better by the fact that you can, in fact, climb that huge thing in the distance. In practice, I actually started my most recent game with these elements, and honestly, I can't recommend this more. Working in this framework from the beginning was actually really fun because as a creator with only a huge cell tower and a section of highway in the distance, I had to figure out a sensible way to get the player to platform to the top of that tower and obviously enjoy the ride there. I ended up adding a third large piece or large pieces towards the end of the game to fill in a little bit of a gap, but at least for 3D platformers, I can highly recommend this technique. But hopefully that clarifies what a skybox can and can't do. I just want to talk a little bit more about one example that sort of goes above and beyond anything that I've seen so far. In the most recent alpha for the new World of Warcraft expansion Shadowlands, they released the central player hub plan for the entire expansion, and alongside that, its skybox. In this expansion, players are going to be traveling to World of Warcraft's version of the Underworld, in other words, the Shadowlands, where a place called the Maw is draining power from all of the other locations in the Shadowlands. In-game, there's really only one place you can actually see this happening, and that's in the skybox of the central hub. In the distance, you can see the other lands, all of which you can travel to, and you can also see the power from each land being drained into the maw through the swirling clouds of the skybox. This is the whole basis for the expansion, so it's incredibly important, but it's also just a super simple detail that works so well to give this very important part of the story a presence in-game outside of just text and explanations. I don't have much commentary on how this specifically could work for you because this is such a specific example, but hopefully it gives you an idea of the potential of what a good skybox can add to your world, if not a good example of just a skybox to look at. So yeah, hopefully that can help anybody out there that's kind of stuck in the work in progress stage, or is basically working on any sort of game and doesn't really have that end in sight. Like I said, for me, creating these elements first or very early on can give you an end to work towards that can be really helpful for the whole process of game creation. Obviously, this doesn't work for everything, but I know that in a lot of different forms of art and creation in general, this can be a positive way to encourage yourself to get towards the end of the level and to always have some direction in sight, even when you're working on a specific element that doesn't seem to be working. And trust me, I've been there. This example I gave of my own, which is this giant cell tower, well, it took me the entirety of working on this level until I was literally on that section to constantly be thinking of how the heck am I going to get platforms to stick off of that giant cell tower to finally figure it out. And even then, it was only after sitting and staring at the television for an hour until I figured out how to do it. So like I said, can be useful, but is definitely not a cure-all in terms of, well, game design. I guess nothing is. All of these different things are just pieces of game design, so if you are interested in the other pieces that I've talked about, feel free to check it out. I do have a playlist on game creation tips, although it does go all the way back to Little Big Planet, so some of those tips may be a little bit too specific, but hopefully you can find some more information in there for helpful things. Just did something over there. But also, like I said, definitely check out the Valve forums. They have a lot of interesting information on skyboxes, as well as a lot of other elements of games on a very, like, entry-level, readable level. I'm running out of words to say, but regardless, I hope you're all doing well. I will talk to you guys in the next video, and have a wonderful week. It is dreary as heck here. I hope it's better where you are, but regardless, I'll talk to you guys soon. But for now, bye.